and he fastened ropes around her little feet, and he proceeded to put her in the well upside down. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, from what my aunt told me, it was a very dark, deep well.
Right.
And they watched my mom, and she screamed. She was terrified. And she wanted to get out of that well, and he was literally dunking her in and out of feces and urine.
Everyone has a story. Everyone has a defining moment. Let me let you in on the secret that led them to their goal. Their strength lies solely in their tenacity. Welcome to Tenacious Thoughts. I am your host, Kimberly Tenacious T. Toko. Welcome to a new season of the Tenacious Thoughts podcast. In this season, we are going to tell the story behind the story, tales of our mother. And today I have the woman who inspired this entire new season to tell us about her story and the story of her mother. Known as Vita Galore in social circles, Allison, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Kimberly. Yes, I am Vita Galore. It means life of abundance, and it definitely is an alias that I've used to share my journey, really for privacy concerns, and also that I feel like that name inspires me. So thank you.
Absolutely. And, to look at her, and this is kind of the thing, we make assumptions about people, and they have a beautiful persona, and Allison is that fairy, that fae, that enchanted being. And so we would never guess her backstory. We would never know this new God spark purpose that you have brought forth. And I had the privilege to be able to watch you speak just a couple of weeks ago and tell your story and the story of her mother. Before we get into that, I would like to go a little bit into your charity and your purpose, what you're now supporting as far as sex trafficking and what happened to you.
Well, thank you. Yes. As you know, Kimberly, there's different kinds of sex trafficking. Mine particularly is familial trafficking, and it's very, how do I say, as you helped me phrase it so beautifully, it's its own prison when it's your mother that is initiating that and keeping that active in your life as a child. So in the last 5 years, I've just really opened up to the healing of that. And the charities that I've been supporting is Courageous Survivors recently.
Yes.
I did a keynote there to share my story, but not only did I feel like it was important for any survivor of trauma to share their story, but equally the story behind the story.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is what got me to that place.
Yes.
So that's been the journey.
Yeah, and it's not spoken of very often, and we're just really now feeling a lot of movement in the assisting of children that have been, trafficked, sex trafficked, and we're catching more of the signs to look for. But we don't really talk about the familial part that can happen within the family dynamic. But, again, to look at you have your master's degree, you've had extreme success in your career, and now you're taking this time with a beautiful man. I got to meet your husband, Paul, and concentrating on you and really thinking about your past and your history and how you can change the way that you've been traumatized and going through your healing so that you find that girl within that
Totally.
you never got before.
Totally, yeah. And I felt like it was time to bring forth what was the girl within to the woman within, but I couldn't do that unless I sort of de-shelved this little, it was a big nugget of pain that I carried for really 4 decades of my life.
Yes.
And so thank you for bringing awareness that, that this really happens.
Yes, and it happens a lot more than people even realize because there's shame involved in it. And you don't want people to, again, look at you and immediately judge you for something you've been through in your past compared to who you are today. Before we get into your mother's story, I would like you to share a little bit about your first memories of what you can remember as a young girl, not even knowing your mother's backstory, because obviously as a child, and this is the point of this conversation, as a child, we don't know the backstory of our parents. We don't know why they're choosing to do the things that they do. We only know that we're growing up in this situation, and this is what we're going through. So please take us through those first years, and then just after you got into a better situation, how you conducted yourself and what the effects of that childhood and choices you made later occurred in your life.
Absolutely. So as a child, like you said, you're trying to make sense of a world that doesn't seem right to you, but when your parental figure is encouraging you, is telling you that this is the way it's going to be, even though there's a lot of pain in that, it adds an extra dynamic of confusion about, am I okay? Am I good? Am I a bad girl? I mean, it was just that constant messaging. So with my mother, and it was my stepfather, I was put in a dynamic where at about 5 years old, they started sexually grooming me. As I shared at the keynote, it started off with putting me in the trunk of their car and hiding me under a blanket to go in and watch these X-rated movies at the drive-in theater. This was in the 70s, probably mid to late 70s. And I remember that so vividly. It scared me to be in that situation. And that was just the start of the grooming, so that when the actual abuse started, probably about 8 or 9 years old, that I was acclimated.
You accepted it.
I accepted it because this is what I knew.
Right. So important for us to point out what you have your children watch, what you have them hear. It's food for every part of their body, their brain, their logic, the environment in which they're raised in. They don't have anything else to compare it to unless, it's a friend's house or this or that. But you didn't get to visit friends. You didn't really go anywhere. That was part of the grooming too, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I was very isolated and sheltered from friends. And there were a few instances where I did kind of escape and go see a friend. Instinctively, as I did get to have a few moments with friends, I knew there was a contrast, a difference. They were watching the cartoons that I wanted to watch, but I wasn't allowed to do that. My mother was, focusing me on, I would say, what their intentions were, which were not good. It was to really placate, please, and just really serve my stepfather.
So I want to ask you this. Your mother, was she nurturing? Did she have your typical, when we think of in the 70s, was she, did she clean the house and make the dinner? And what were your feelings as a child? Was it just battling to try to get her attention? Take us through that a little bit.
Yes. My experience with my mom was very frustrating because there was so much neglect in my life. Of course, she, did some domestic things. She did our laundry. She cooked dinners. But aside from just the essentials of living, she wasn't present. She was vacant. I describe her in my keynote as, like this vacant human shell. We had no connection, and I was always frustrated that the only time I could get her attention is when she wanted something. And a lot of times that was when it came to pleasing my stepfather. Yes. That was the only time she would give me that moment or that time.
So you're this young little girl who is being raised by a vacant, not there emotionally at all woman, and a stepfather who is looking at you as his own toy, his own pleasure, his own outlet in whatever sick way that was. But you also had two younger brothers. Was she different towards the brothers, and how was your stepfather towards the brothers.
Yeah, so there was a totally different dynamic with the stepbrother or my half brothers because they are his children by blood, and I was his stepdaughter. And so I was removed from the home when I was 13, but as far as I know, there wasn't any sexual abuse that happened with him and his sons, but he was physically abusive to all of us. So, yeah, it did put me in a position where, I was singled out for a lot of the abuse.
Yeah, and I think that is common in a familial situation. It does seem to be the uncles, the stepfathers, that they're isolating that one child who may not have been given the nurturing or who may be the troublemaker. And it's very much a battle, a narcissist type battle. They make you feel loved, but the way they make you feel loved is by using you for their own purposes.
Absolutely. And I guarantee you, my stepfather, although he was not diagnosed, was an extreme narcissist.
Yeah.
Because everything was about control.
So before we get to the part where, it gets real deep, I do want to talk a little bit now about your mother. In the early 70s, women couldn't even get a credit card unless their husband signed for them. So your mother was really limited on what she had access to, but it was even more than that because she wasn't American. She didn't even come to America until she was pregnant with you.
Yes.
So let's go back to the tale of your mother. And I know you didn't learn about this until later in life, and that's going to be part of what we want to help people understand in their healing process, that learning the backstory can change your perspective. Maybe not the way you feel about the abuse, but it can change your perspective. So please tell us a little bit about your mother, where she's from, and what she had to endure.
Yeah, so luckily I've come to this place in my life where I could understand my mom's story. It wasn't really revealed to me until probably the last 3 years. So I've lived most of my life just devoid of understanding, where her head was. How could she operate as a mother like this to me? It was devastating. But my mom at the time came from a third world country. It no longer is, but Peru is where my mother is from. And she was desperate. She needed a green card. She was divorced by my father before I was born, who was an American man. And I do have to give my mom credit for this. She did have the tenacity. She had the willpower to at least come to the U.S.
Yes.
And birth me here, being that my father was American. And but at that point, she didn't really speak the language.
Right.
She had limited choices, and she needed to stay.
Right.
She couldn't really survive on her own financially.
No. Yeah, and that's the whole point is, again, in those early 70s, women barely could, even if they could get a job, it was very low wage. And again, couldn't even get a credit card unless they had a husband's signature. So she's birthing a child on her own from a different country. She really had limited resources, like you said.
She did. And she also had her own backdrop of trauma that had happened to her as a child. We can get into that. But, she's coming here with that,
Yes.
in her backdrop, and she's, fearful, she's desperate, and my father actually left her. So she was just happy that some man, didn't matter really who, she wasn't discriminating that very well or vetting that out, would just be able to take her.
Yeah.
And kind of save her.
Yeah, the old knight in shining armor, I've come to save the day. And especially back then, I mean, she probably was just grateful.
She was.
That, at least. But your mother's story is, let's just face it, it's horrifying. And let's go back to who raised your mother, or who was there for your mother, because your grandmother was also quite a piece, to say the least. So please, let's go back to the days on the farm.
So it's a very generational repetition here. My grandmother's husband left her, and she had 3 daughters, and so she had to find independence, financially. So she had 2, sometimes 3 jobs. And so my mom and her sisters were primarily raised by my great grandmother, her grandma, and it would have been her uncle.
Yeah.
So she had these 2 dysfunctional family members raising her and her sisters. And, my aunt, her sister, revealed a lot of this to me, like I said, 3 years ago, that my mom was this very dynamic, energetic, very hyper kind of gal, very courageous. And she, the dynamics in Peru were very strict in terms of children being disciplined. And my mom just wasn't able to follow those orders very well.
Right. And we're talking in the 50s, right? She was born in the 50s?
Well, she was born in the late 40s.
Late 40s, okay.
Yes, but a lot of the abuse that was shared with me was when she was about 8 or 9 years old.
Right.
That was recalled from my aunt's story. But yeah, my mom was not really in alignment with how they needed to be as children. And, there's speculation that my mom was on the spectrum.
Right.
So that added to her challenge. But she was punished severely for that. And a lot of that I felt like was so severe it kept her in trauma. I mean, I can go into the details, but everything from being awakened at 5 a.m, and if they didn't hear their uncle's first call, he would dump buckets of ice cold water on the girls.
Right.
And if they showed their emotions, if they screamed or they cried, they'd be beaten with brooms and large sticks.
These were young little girls on a farm with, every day it was like this for them, right?
Yeah, they had to be in a line. They walked a tight line with my uncle. He was the primary caregiver for the girls in terms of, the daily chores, they're getting up for school. And, that was, I think, a minor abuse compared to the other things that happened to my mom.
Yeah.
If she didn't, the one story that I feel like really took her into a trauma state and kept her there was she didn't follow my uncle's quick orders. She didn't stand in attention,
right?
Basically. And they were, a lot of the memories from my aunt was the girls, they would be drugged by their hair a lot, to be disciplined. But not only would they be drugged by their hair, but...
Your uncle was also severely abused. And there's the story of your great-grandmother, what she would do to him. If you wouldn't mind sharing that.
Yes, and this story was actually shared to me by my mother, that my uncle was an adult man at this point, and if you talk back to your elders, you were going to be in trouble, like physically abused, even then. And my mom recalls when he talked back to his mom, he and everyone around him they witnessed something so horrific and to me was demonic. But my great-grandmother had him go to the chicken coop on the farm, and he got on his knees. He had to take his shirt off, and she took a live chicken from that coop and literally beat him with the chicken. It was pulverized by the time she was done. Bloodied his whole body, his face, and she kept beating him with this chicken until he screamed for forgiveness.
The image that you get from that, or at least I do, is a woman who purposefully wants to not only inflict pain but terrorize until they are in a shell of nothing. Just beat the life out of him, just like she beat the life out of the chicken. And you said that she wouldn't stop until he begged forgiveness, correct?
Yes. And, my mom's telling me this story, and I'm probably like 6 years old.
Right.
And to me, it's horrifying. Right. And I'm like, why are you even telling me this story?
Especially at 6, because you probably had no understanding whatsoever, right?
It just was beyond me that, but my mom, because she was so vacant, and I'm sure she never got any counseling,
Right.
She would just had to like spill all this stuff to me, this little child, you know, and she would tell me like such descriptive details about, you know, feathers were flying everywhere and that chicken was just pulverized, and you know, it was so horrific to watch. But then what was even worse is that after this chicken is dead and my uncle is emotionally, you know, dead,
right,
he's just laying on the ground and crying like a baby.
Right.
And they're witnessing this grown man being so, you know, disheveled.
Yeah.
And so
brought down to nothing.
And then it became his mission to do the same
Yes.
to my mother.
The cycle.
Yes.
From the great grandmother to the uncle to the mother to the child. I mean, it just keeps going and going and going. So there's a morning where your mother is giving your uncle a hard time. And please continue with that story.
Yeah, this story, it never, I never escape feeling emotional about it, because I just feel like in my, you know, cellular being that it is the moment that broke my mom.
Yes.
And she was probably, you know, it could have been 9 or 10 years old. We don't know exactly, but so she did not pay attention. She didn't answer his orders.
Right.
And he drug her by the hair to a sewer well.
Right.
And he fastened ropes around her little feet, and he proceeded to put her in the well upside down. And it was just like, from what my aunt told me, it was a very dark, deep well.
Right.
And they watched my mom, and she screamed. She was terrified. And she wanted to get out of that well, and he was literally dunking her in and out of feces and urine.
To get her to shut up.
To get her to quiet down. Yeah. But she was terrified.
Of course.
So until she stopped crying, he didn't stop. And even when he did stop, he left her hanging there. There were some farm workers that took pity on my mom, and they witnessed that, and they hoisted her out eventually. But my aunt was very clear to share that from that moment on, my mother just never was the same. There was just something in her that died.
And we like to think that, you know, oh, why didn't people call the police? And we have to remember this was a third world country in the 50s. And, I mean, you were allowed to beat your children. You were allowed to beat your wives. It wasn't unusual, but the extreme of your mother's situation is unusual. And if you can just imagine a tiny little girl screaming with her mouth open and then the sewage coming up in her face, I mean, I am surprised she even was able to function, to be honest with you, after something like that. And, you know, I'm emotional about this too, because I look at you and that bit of strength that your mom had, that even though she wasn't perfect, passed on to you. Because she does have strength. You have to give her that, right? And I think that's part of trying to discover the tales of your mother, because you didn't know that part.
No.
You didn't know that part.
No, that's been kept from me for 50-some years.
Yeah. And that was only, you know, one couple little pieces of her life. There was also the cats. Tell us about the cats.
Yeah, so on the farm, they didn't have a lot of toys. There wasn't a lot of things to play with. They made a lot of their toys. But my mom loved when the cats would have kittens.
Yeah.
And the kittens became their toys.
Right.
But my great-grandmother was very strict about, you know, controlling the cats on the farm. And she only wanted enough to keep the rats away.
Right.
And so when they would have litters of kittens, she would send my mom and my aunts to the river. She would put the kittens in a burlap sack. And, you know, my mom and my aunts loved these little
Right.
kittens, but they had to follow their orders because they knew there would be punishments
Right.
for not following suit with that. So, again, I was 6 years old when she told me this.
Yeah.
And she would say, I didn't have a lot to play with on the farm. We were poor. And my grandmother put these kittens in this burlap sack, and we were ordered to go to the river. We would throw some rocks in there, and we'd have to send them down.
Yeah, they knew that they were drowning these kittens.
Yes.
These little girls, these tiny children, had to kill these kittens. And again, the fortitude and tenacity that just to have to go to school after that, or to continue doing the chores, like the things that she had to learn to shut off. And when you're talking about, she's telling you these things when you're 6 years old, in a lot of ways, it's almost like she was trying to tell you, I had it so much worse than you.
Yes.
Just go along with this.
Yes.
You'll be okay.
Yes.
Because this is what I had to do.
You're right. It was so that in
Yeah.
her mind, she wanted me
Yeah.
to know how hard she had it.
And I think a lot of our parents do that, and a lot of children who are now adults that were familial situations like this, that is what the parents did, because they would also justify it with themselves. Well, I know this is wrong, but I'm still able to give them a much better life than what I had. So this is okay. I survived what I did, and it was 100 times worse. She's going to be fine. So here you are, you're 5, 6, 7, you've been groomed, and then stepfather starts coming into your room, right?
Yes. I was... the details of the age are not clear, but I was probably like 9 or 10 because, at this point, I'm kind of in that preteen development phase, which actually didn't really work out because I was in so much fight or flight from the trauma of him just being abusive,
Yes.
physically, emotionally, and also, sexually.
Yes.
Up until that
Molesting you.
point, molesting me, yeah. There was so much of that trauma that I didn't even develop. My body didn't develop.
Right.
But
Right.
but I feel like he tried to go that way
Right.
when I was about 9 or 10.
Yeah. And so he began coming into your room and
Yeah.
doing the things that happen
Yes.
to those children. And what would happen if you weren't compliant?
Well, I was not allowed to be non-compliant because there were always consequences
Yes.
that would be had, and it would always be expressed to my half-brothers and my mom that because I was being so, non-obedient,
Rebellious.
since I was being rebellious, a bad girl, because I didn't follow suit. I contested him.
Right.
I fought him a lot of times because I didn't like that.
Of course not.
And there would be a price to pay.
Yeah.
Either I paid it or it would be taken out on my brothers or my mother.
Yes.
Sometimes all of us would be abused.
Right.
And so I realized that if I didn't follow suit, that, there would be a consequence.
There came a time, again, your mother found some strength, found some courage, and she did try to take you out of the home. She did try to live without him. And you also had an aunt and uncle that recognized these signs of abuse. Tell us a little bit about that. I'm going to call it one last time that she tried to just make a better life, at least for you.
Yeah. So, in her broken world, I have to give her a lot of credit. She did try to leave my stepfather at about that time when I was a little older, probably 11 or 12. She, got the strength to move from Michigan to Florida with her 3 children, and she was giving it a go. And we were living in like this single trailer out in the boonies. And, she didn't have a lot of marketable job skills. So she was going to work in my aunt's factory. My aunt had a seashell business. And she just thought, I can do this. I feel like it probably built up for her, and she saw what was happening to me as I was getting older, and she was getting scared about that.
Yes.
And I have to give her credit that she tried, but she didn't have consistent work. with my aunt's business. Financially, she was struggling. She had a toddler. My 6-year-old brother at the time, very ADHD, very hyper, just a lot of energy for her to deal with.
Sure.
And then myself, at that point, I was probably 11 or 12. And I think she gave it a go for a few months, and she just couldn't put food on the table.
Right.
And she consented to go back.
Yeah, the worser of two evils, so to speak. And I'm sure in a lot of ways, and it probably still lingers with you, you feel that she was a little selfish in that she made that decision to bring you back to your darkest place, obviously. But there were some saviors in your life.
Yes, I feel like I was divinely saved. I definitely have guardian angels. I do know that, Kimberly.
Yes.
I do know that. If I know anything, I have a lot of angels.
I agree.
And, I, unbeknownst to myself, because I was so used to the abuse, my aunt and uncle saw something else that was happening, that they recognized, well, this is not, Normal. This is not proper behavior. There's definitely some abuse going on. I was so numb to it, honestly. Right. I didn't even recognize that. But they made it clear to my mom and my stepfather that they knew what was going on. And since my mom decided to go back to Michigan and give it a go with him, they said she had one of two choices. I could stay with them and their 4 children and live with them, which was a blessing. Or they would report my parents to Child Protective Services.
Right. Which, thank God, they allowed you to stay with your aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your church, your community, and how your angels, your faith, has been a huge part.
Yeah. So thank you, because that was a pivotal time for me to see that there was another reality that I could choose. All I really knew was darkness, control, abuse, neglect. My aunt and uncle's faith, they were regular patrons of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's a Mormon church. And there was just this beautiful acceptance. They spoke kind words. They,
belonging.
Yeah, they gave me that community of belonging, that I was okay, that I was lovable, that I wasn't despicable, that I was worth something, that God loves me. And I thought, oh, there's some other life out here.
And did you feel safe?
I felt so safe.
Right.
I felt like, even though I've never really known what family feels like traditionally with healthy parents and siblings, I think that was the closest I came to feeling that.
Find that community. And in most cases, it is faith-based, and we're not saying, one religion or another. Find that community that gives you that God spark. It's one of my favorite words.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. It was a God spark. And like you said, it doesn't have to be a certain religion, but that just happened to be
for you
what was there for me. And another reality was possible.
Yeah.
And it really actually put a pep in my step, because I thought, I can create something different.
Yeah. Take us a little bit through some of maybe your choices that were affected by your childhood, and then where you are today.
Yeah, no, thank you for asking. I mean, it really has been a journey. You might look at me on paper and think, oh, well, she just got really lucky,
Right.
And honestly, it was luck, but it was also a lot of hard work.
Yes.
Because here's the thing. When you don't develop, I would say when you don't have a healthy upbringing, when you're in a lot of abuse and trauma, your entire body is physically affected.
Yes.
So a lot of my body, I feel like I was in fight or flight. I didn't sleep a lot of nights. My stepfather wouldn't allow me to rest. So I'd go to school. I didn't learn correctly. I was always behind in my studies. I just was distracted.
Right.
But not only that, like now I've learned in my adult life, my body developed differently. My endocrine system was stunted a bit. Even though it's developed, it's still challenged. So now today I still have challenges with like cortisol production, adrenal function.
What a lot of people don't understand is it's not just a memory. And, physical abuse doesn't heal. The heart, science has proven the heart and every cell in your body has memory cells. And your body does hold on to the memory in all parts. A constant anxiety and stress and fight or flight during very crucial times of not only brain development, but like you said, of body development, in which you were stunted and affected, permanently affected.
Absolutely. And like, I'm so happy you're sharing that reality, because it's not just the emotional factor. That was such a struggle, because I went to summer school in my high school years just to be able to graduate.
Yeah.
I mean, that was very defeating to, sit in summer school for 3 years just to be able to go to college.
Yeah.
And then I had to apply for grants, because at this point I didn't really have financial assistance from my family. I was on my own.
Right.
I mean, what people don't know is when I was 14, to be able to afford clothes, I would work in a sewing factory after school for 8 hours a day.
Wow.
So I worked a full-time job like half of my high school years to have money. I'd go home at 11:30 at night and I'd do my homework. I'd stay up till 1 in the morning, and I'd get up at 6 and I'd do this whole thing like 5 days a week. So yeah, I did have the fortunate resources of having a roof over my head. I had my aunt and uncle.
Right.
I had my faith, but everything else was up to me.
Right.
And that's why I say if it's gonna be, it's up to me.
Right.
Like, that's how I've lived my life.
Yes. Yes.
But I made it, and I think part of maybe my aunt's great deposits in me at that time, which was very formative. She would always say, you just need to be independent.
Yeah.
Because that will take you in a different direction than your mother's direction. You need to be financially independent. So at this point, I'm like, oh, well, how do I do that?
Right.
And it was really about going to college at that time. I ended up getting my undergrad at Michigan State. I got hired directly by General Motors, which was amazing. 'Cause at that time, they called them Generous Motors. And they paid for me to go to grad school. I had insurance.
Wonderful.
I felt like I just had a new lease on life.
Yeah, and that's what you needed.
I did.
That's what you needed.
I did, and then it took me to other places. I got into spokes modeling. I became a...
Gee, I wonder why.
Well, you're so kind. I feel like you could have been my partner.
Maybe.
We could have been a dynamic duo. But yes, I got to do some really cool jobs for Cadillac and represent the brands when they were launching the Escalade. Like, this was mid-2000s.
So tell us when the healing actually really began for you. And I have a feeling it has something to do with this wonderful man that you just happen to be married to.
Yes. No, you're so right. Because I was, in this survival mode most of my life, this was my second marriage when I met my wonderful prince.
Yes.
My first marriage wasn't bad, honestly. We just decided to go different ways. He wasn't abusive. He was a great guy.
Oh, thank God. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah. He's very successful to this day. And my current husband is very successful. So I got to this place where there was still a lot of health problems I was having.
Yeah.
And he said, just take some time off.
Yes.
Because I could.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I'll take a year off. And that just totally transformed into like 10 years. And then it became longer.
Wonderful.
Yes. But in that time frame of just having like freedom to kind of exhale and to like be with me instead of just, surviving.
But your heart healing, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that was kind of unexpected because I thought, well, I'm going to do some counseling now, more counseling, a deeper dive into counseling that I had never done. And in that counseling, and at this point I'm in my 40s.
Yes.
All these memories just started to trickle in.
As they do.
They resurfaced.
As they do.
And unexpected. I've heard people say that in trauma you suppress things, but I didn't realize, Kimberly, to what degree I had suppressed so much trauma.
Yes.
And it came to the surface. And thank goodness it did. I mean, at the time, I probably didn't like that because I had to look at a lot of things and, to see your darkness, to see your fear, to see your sadness, to see all the things that would bring shame is not easy.
Your mother, is she still living?
She's living. Yeah. She's still in Michigan. My stepfather passed away, I want to say 3 years ago. But she's still living with my half-brothers in the old farmhouse that they all grew up in, and none of them have left.
And have you made the choice to forgive her?
Not until recently.
Right.
And that was part of my keynote.
Yes.
I had a sadness for her, but it could never completely, as I call it, release the poison that I carried for my mother, because I kind of blamed her for how my life turned out.
Of course.
I never had children. I had all these repetitive health issues that stemmed from all of those years of abuse.
Right.
So of course I carried this resentment for her.
Naturally, yeah.
And then it wasn't until my aunt shared with me my mom's story about what really broke her that I could actually get to a place where it really just leveled me emotionally. Like I felt her pain.
Yeah.
And that she did the best that she could have done.
Right. The story behind the story.
Yes.
And the importance of, number one, not repeating the cycle, and number two, and again, I will say because of God, the forgiveness is what needs to happen so that you break the cycle forever.
And that's the key that you've helped me flesh out, was that I can break that. With that true level of forgiveness. And just putting the pieces together was like, oh.
There's still going to be days of resentment. There's still going to be days of, why and how. But as long as we feel that deep within our heart, that understanding and that forgiveness, the only thing we take with us is who we become. And that's who we want to be, is that person in the end.
Yeah, and I know now without a doubt that this was my journey in this life to transmute all of this generational abuse and to turn it into something good. Not that it's good of what happened to me, but that I could dissemble it by releasing the poison that I was carrying.
You right here, right now in this space, for your mother, for your mother's mother, and so on and so forth, are now completely eradicating and erasing that trauma from all of those ancestral lines. And it's a beautiful thing.
It really is. And thank you for being able to really flesh that out and showcase that to the listeners or the viewers, because I know everyone's journey is different and they can put into place how that works for them, right?
Right, exactly. This is one of my favorite parts of the show. We're going to get into the famous questions.
Ooh, well, that's what I was waiting for.
And then we'll wrap it up, because I had a few questions that I asked you prior to you coming here, and I'll now explain all of your answers to you that you gave me. But let's get into the famous questions, shall we?
I think we shall.
I think we shall.
I think we shall.
I think we shall. All right, so I want you to think of everything we kind of just talked about, especially in the healing and things that are going on in your life. What is your favorite word?
Illumination.
Illumination. Ooh, I like that one. Because you do illuminate. You do. You're just this shining, bright, gorgeous creature that comes walking into the room. Along the same note, what is your least favorite word?
My least favorite word would be victim.
Oh, I love that one. Ashley Judd, I read this. Ashley Judd said you can only be a victim once. After that, you're a volunteer.
I never heard that.
And people, you're right, people grab a hold of that and hold on to that. There's a lot of poor me's in this planet. But we have to let go of it.
We do,
Absolutely.
Kimberly,
Absolutely.
because the alternative, and I mean, this is what I know from 52 years of being alive. If you choose the victim narrative, that's where you'll stay.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't got the time for it.
We ain't lingering over in the victim. No. Okay, so now this is a little bit of a different question. When you first wake up in the morning, what is your turn on? What gets you to say, okay, this is another beautiful day?
Oh, well, thank you
Besides
for
your
asking. Yes, he is a prince.
Not that kind of turn on.
An Italian prince.
Yes.
But he is older.
Doesn't matter, those Italians.
I know.
Yeah, they have an appetite.
They're still stallions. No.
Yes, they are.
Oh, but thanks. That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that is like my giddy up in the morning is like, I'll never have this same day ever again.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what a gift. Like,
Yeah.
let's go see what's waiting.
And then that is so you. That is, if you check out her stories, that is so her. I love that. What is your turn off?
Oh, heavy energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like judgment energy.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
It brings you back to that place, that dark place. And we don't go there. We don't go there. We illuminate.
well, we do. I mean, I always say, listen for the greatness in humanity and in life. And I feel like that judgment energy is total opposite of what that is, in terms of looking for greatness.
Yeah, it causes a lot of problems. The
Yeah.
expectations and the judgments. Absolutely. I agree with you.
That's my turn off.
This is my favorite question. And what is your favorite swear word? 9 times out of 10, it is fuck. We all like that word. It is very versatile.
Right? It has different pitches, like different, expressions and energies.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is more of a philosophical question. And we have to take the modeling off the table. If you, and think back maybe in your high school, I know you were kind of aiming for a certain type of career, but if you couldn't have done the modeling and things that you ended up choosing for a career, what was that one thing you really wanted to do as a young woman, a young girl?
Well, that's a great question too, because back in that time, you could take these assessment tests that gave you direction of like what a good career might be.
Yeah.
And I always thought, oh, well, I would have loved to have been that. Although at the time I wouldn't have been able to do the math.
Sure.
Because I was so remedial with that. But I still have girl math now, so it doesn't matter. But luckily, I didn't become this. But I wanted to be like a rocket scientist.
Oh, I loved that. And you could have pulled that off. I think you could have.
But with my girl math, I mean, we'd be in trouble.
Well, I mean, we'd find a different area of the rocket science.
Okay.
If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Ooh, this is delicious. This person is alive. Julia Roberts.
Oh, I have, in all this time, I've never had someone say that. Tell me why.
She was very much a part of why I pursued a lot of my education in the 90s.
Wow.
Because of Pretty Woman.
Yeah. I remember that movie. It's one of my favorite movies.
Me too.
It was a great film. For the youngins out there, you got to watch the film. It's great. Anyway.
It was great. She was having breakfast with Richard Gere.
Yes.
And she's like, you must be really smart.
Yeah.
She's
with
like,
the pancake in her hand.
Yes.
You must be really, it was all stuffed in her mouth. Yes.
You must be really smart. You went to school. You went all the way.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what's all the way?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I finished my master's degree or my business degree.
Yeah.
And that to me was such a moment because I thought, oh, I got to do that too.
Yeah.
Because he had this life he created because he had
and
education.
You wanted that life.
Yes.
So in order to make that happen, you're like, I better learn. I better learn a thing or two.
Oh, a thing or
Making
two.
this happening. Oh,
So
I love that.
yeah.
Okay, so I asked you a few questions.
Yes, I love them all.
And one of them was to close your eyes and to picture a house and tell me the color of the house. And you said a white house with gray trim and a white picket fence. Spiritually, that means peace, balance, and protection, a safe place for your soul. So that means right now in this time, that is truly what you're feeling, a safe place for your soul. And probably why a lot of this purposeful wanting to change people's lives is coming forward, because you're finally safe.
Yes, you're right.
So the next one, The animal I asked you.
I love
what
this.
animal. And if you watch her story, she loves cats.
I do.
She loves cats. We all love cats. But you said eagle. An eagle reminds you that while you've built safety, your spirit still wants to soar and to see life from a higher view. Your work's not done yet. You've just now reached a place where you, again, feel safe to soar. So we have a full moon that we're filming this. So I asked her, think of the full moon. What was the first word when you'd already done some research?
Yes.
And it was the beaver moon.
Yes.
So, but the beaver moon brings illumination, which you do illuminate. We brought that word up. And it's showing what's strong in your foundation and where you're ready to rise higher. You're starting to see a theme here with these questions that I asked you. They all are meeting at a point of safety, ready to spread your wings, ready to illuminate, rise higher. And again, the symbolism of the beaver is you've worked very hard to build your world, and you've had to do a lot of it in the dark, alone.
Wow.
Alone.
That
right?
really resonates.
Yep. The scent, I asked you what your favorite smell was, and you said coffee, which, by the way, is one of mine for sure. Coffee represents warmth, comfort, and the ritual of presence and grounding. Same thing, the theme here, and I ask these questions because sometimes they can go one way or another, but you're very consistent in these, because these are instant things that come up. And then your song. Don't you forget about me.
You know that song.
Yeah. So Don't You Forget About Me by Simple Minds reveals a soul that wants to be truly seen and remembered, authentic, brave, and real.
What?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
my goodness.
So in closing, you are both the builder and the flyer, rooted and rising. The beaver and the eagle live in harmony within you.
I'm feeling that.
Yeah. So next is more speaking engagements and a book.
Perhaps. I'm open to anything.
I think we shall. So if people want to get a hold of you, if they would like to have you as a keynote speaker on any of their events, maybe have some sort of advice, you have vast knowledge in many different areas, especially in fashion. I know that's a lot of what you interact with now. How do they get a hold of you?
I would say the best is to find me on the Instagram platform, Vita_Galore.
Vita Galore. We'll have that floating above the video so that people can see that. But thank you for coming today. I love you.
Oh,
I think you're wonderful.
I love you too. We're so in sync.
Yes, we are.
So thank you for being in my world.